Hello there, Price of Reason here with a special report. It's no secret that over the past several years there's been a ton of problems with the Doctor Who franchise. If one would have to pinpoint where the show's biggest issues started, I would say that it was during the Peter Capaldi 12th Doctor era, where identity politics started becoming a major factor in the writing of the series as part of the BBC's ongoing ultra-left agenda. But as bad as that era was, upon the departure of Capaldi and then showrunner Stephen Moffat and the arrival of actress Jodie Whittaker in the Doctor role, along with showrunner Chris Chibnall, the quality of the show had declined even further, ultimately driving the entire franchise off a cliff. So much so that after 3 seasons of Jodie and Chibs, the entire show was almost cancelled altogether, and it likely would have been had the BBC not formed a strategic 3-way alliance with Disney and Russell T Davies' production company Bad Wolf, which is owned by Sony. In many ways, this partnership was pretty much the final chance for Doctor Who to try and course correct the very mistakes that had driven so many longtime fans away. And initially, things were looking up. With the announcement of the return of Russell T Davies, the showrunner that helped revive the Doctor Who franchise in 2005, there had been a mild feeling of hope amongst fans that Davies could work his magic once again. But very quickly, it had turned out that RTD2 was a very different man than RTD1. If in the past Davies had something to prove in terms of his value as a showrunner, sci-fi writer, and creative visionary, in our day and age he seems far more interested in peddling agendas and propaganda, and using Doctor Who as his very own political platform, much like Alex Kurtzman does with Star Trek and Kathleen Kennedy does with Star Wars. And why would anybody in their right mind strive to be like Kurtzman or Kennedy? In Davies' case, it seems like a desperate attempt to stay relevant at this late point in his career, where he's no longer the trailblazing producer that he once was. So instead of delivering some fresh new ideas that would get fans excited, he just ended up resorting to the laziest form of entertainment, pandering to the imaginary modern audience. In addition, with the BBC and Disney so obsessed with identity politics, rather than reining Davies in, they appear to keep enabling and even encouraging him, making this 3-way alliance the perfect storm of wokeness. That's probably how we ended up with actor Ncuti Gatwa as the latest Doctor. Now, just to be clear, when Gatwa was first announced, I was more than willing to give him a chance, but once it turned out that moving forward, the Doctor would now suddenly be an LG character because of Gatwa's real-life preferences, it was obvious that Gatwa was mainly hired to push an agenda. Now, personally, I don't care what an actor does in his private life, but since the Doctor has never been an LG character before, there's absolutely no justification in making him that way now. And bringing back David Tennant's Doctor for 3 special episodes just to lay the groundwork for this was never going to sit well with fans. So between Tennant's Doctor getting lectured about pronouns, being talked down to by women, discovering that he's fond of dudes, and then squirting out an additional Doctor, it became rather obvious that the Doctor Who franchise could no longer be repaired. Again. And before you go and accuse me of being an isthenophobe, this isn't just a random opinion of some pop culture critic. The ratings for Doctor Who since the arrival of Gatwa have been a complete disaster, to such an extent that the future of the show is completely up in the air. Again. Yes, Disney seemingly agreed to finance 2 seasons of Doctor Who, so we'll definitely be getting a 2nd season with Gatwa. But what happens after that? Will there be a 3rd Doctor Who season with Ncuti Gatwa? In an early 2024 interview, Gatwa seemed to imply that perhaps season 2 would be as last, so it kind of seemed like the BBC and Disney were going to wait for the 2nd season to air, see if it improves in the ratings, however unlikely, and then decide if they want to renew it for another one. But just last week there was a surprise twist when Ncuti Gatwa talked about a 3rd season renewal while filming an appearance on the Graham Norton Show. On that show he said, "We did a 2nd series this year, the Christmas special is coming up, and we're filming a 3rd season next year." But then, in an even bigger twist, when the show actually aired on Friday, October 11th, the segment where Gatwa talks about Season 3 was mysteriously deleted from the broadcast, which ended up sounding something like this. "We finished the 2nd season earlier this year. We've got the Christmas episode coming out at Christmas, but it's been amazing." And the big question is, why would Gatwa announce a Season 3 renewal only for it to be deleted? If I had to give my own opinion on it, I think it could be 1 out of 4 scenarios. Number 1, wishful thinking on Gatwa's end. Perhaps he desperately wants the show to be renewed for a 3rd season so badly that he figured that if he mentioned it on Graham Norton, maybe it'll put pressure on the BBC and Disney to renew it. Number 2, perhaps Russell T Davies himself is actually the desperate one, and he's the one that told Gatwa that there's a 3rd season renewal in the cards, even though there isn't one, at least not yet. I guess what I'm saying is that Davies may have used Gatwa as a tool to increase pressure on Disney and the BBC without Gatwa even knowing him. Number 3, both Davies and Gatwa are equally desperate and decided on this strategy together. And finally, number 4, maybe the show really has been renewed for a third season, but some of the contractual details are still up in the air, including Gatwa's future on it. Personally though, I don't think Doctor Who has been renewed for a third season with Gatwa as the Doctor, and if season 2 continues with the poor ratings that we've seen until now, I strongly believe that the entire show could be cancelled altogether. While I know there's still some Doctor Who spin-off already in production that may or may not actually see the light of day, I'm fairly certain that regardless, we are nearing the end of the franchise's current run. Now, many people would argue that Doctor Who had already ended with Peter Capaldi's last episode, and I agree with that assessment, but this would at least make it more official, and honestly, I'm fine with that if it happens. Doctor Who could use a break. Perhaps after this current regime is gone, the franchise could one day be revived with a completely different creative team. They may not be able to repair the damage we've seen in recent years, but maybe they could just do a complete reboot while still respecting the classic series. Or if some future showrunner that's not an activist insists on having continuity with Classic Who or New Who, then he could always ask Capaldi to return and make his past regeneration end up being some type of bad dream he wakes up from, effectively retconning both Jodie and Gatwa's Doctor out of existence, and then maybe even bringing back Capaldi for a run of episodes, which I'm sure would delight at least some fans. This strategy, known as the Bobby Ewing Dallas technique, would also be a way to delete Tennant's embarrassing 60th anniversary specials from canon as well, as they only tarnished his legacy. And I know that what I'm saying here may cause a few activist shills to have meltdowns, but I want to be absolutely clear. I've never had an issue with what Hollywood considers diverse casting on Doctor Who. Martha is still one of my favorite companions in the New Who run. I also liked Mickey and Captain Jack as well. As I often say, diversity and inclusion in and of themselves are not considered a negative thing when done organically, but when this idea is abused and weaponized to turn this once beloved franchise into pure, unadulterated extremist propaganda, that's when franchises are destroyed. Anyhow, that's my take, and if you enjoy my Doctor Who analysis, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel so that you can continue to receive updates in the future. Thanks for watching, my friends. Thank you, and good day!
I am such an awesome guy. I make so many videos.